Welcome back to the second part of my really extended weekend build review of Revell's new 72nd scale late production Elco PT boat. Staying with my objective to keep the main deck structures removable for ease of painting, the basic parts of the chart house were glued up. Like the aft cabin, breakdown and fit of the parts offered a few challenges. In order to get things perfectly even all the way around, I had to sand down the upper edge of the splash shield, which eliminated the raised lip. In the end, it worked out fine because it prompted me to create a more prototypical result by adding the beaded edge that should have been molded into the side of the walls. The rest of the forward superstructure was assembled into one removable piece. The shafts and rudders were attached. One detail to note that isn't indicated in the instructions is that both wing shaft struts are actually supposed to be mounted perpendicular to the angle of the hull at this point. Given the location of the other kit mounting holes, the geometry is a bit off, but nevertheless you can give them a slight outboard cant. To check for problems, the hull was given a coat of red oxide old school lacquer primer, followed by a sanding sponge and scuff pad. All the major components then got a coat of dark gray lacquer primer. I've yet to locate any sort of definitive camouflage information, but there seems to be some consensus that the late boats actually left Elco in measure 31 pattern 20L, with solid deck green on the horizontal surfaces. These old camouflage specs indicate the 1944 colors, but some authors want to use the earlier 1943 lighter greens, which I think actually were used for pattern 5P. But again, I'm not claiming any expertise here. For this review, I decided to just test out the colors specified in the old sheet. To me, a paint was mixed to match color chips from floating dry dock. For the actual pattern, I used these profile drawings from David Doyle's Elco PT boat on deck book. I traced the camouflage patterns in Corel Draw and cut the stencils on a cameo silhouette. The bottom of the actual Elco boats were painted with 3 coats of a proprietary material known as copperoid. Here's the way the hull turned out. The rudders should be finished as though they were unpainted manganese bronze, which is sort of a dull grayish metal. Depending on the paint you're using, finishing the mufflers and linkage can be easy or challenging because the camouflage and copperoid were carried over to the mufflers as well. When mounting the mufflers, I'd recommend starting with the outboard mufflers first, because they're the easiest to align with the hull side. The linkage to the muffler is very poorly represented, and I left it off for this review as it really detracted from the appearance. In reality, they're barely visible and could be done better in fine wire. In between painting the hull, I worked my way through assembling the weapons. The star of the deck on any late model Elco was the 40mm. Here are the 40mm guns from each kit. You take your pick which one you want to fix. I found it faster and easier to just add some reinforcement to the receiver and put the pin back with brass wire. The mounting had its own issues with bad alignment, made worse by a defect in the mold. After spending a fair amount of time cleaning up parting lines, this is about as far as I care to go. I wasn't particularly impressed with the rocket launchers. Here again, fluffed off edges, poor fit, ejector pin marks were just another example of a common theme. Revell did a nice job on the 20mm, but the tripod mount was not up to the same standard. Revell's images of the finished 37mm are a bit deceiving. The molded magazine is disappointing, and unless you do some reshaping and creative painting, you're not going to get this right out of the box. Instead, you're going to get this. My compliments to the builder. In reality, the magazine looks like this. I decided to do a little rework. The upper surface of the kit part was thinned out. I milled some grooves into a piece of 20,000 styrene strip, radiused the raised edges by hand, and wrapped it around the thinned-out section of the kit magazine. The width was reduced and facings were added. Here's the before and after. If you want more information on the 37mm cannon, I have a link in the description for a maintenance film. Both the 50 caliber mounts and the torpedo racks didn't fare well in the production and packaging. In each kit, half of them were broken. I highly recommend that you cement the twin 50 mount to the ring first before attempting to do any cleanup. Don't be in a hurry. Let the cement joint get solid first, because it will be your only means of support for the fragile structure. You also want to spend a little time with the torpedoes. The two halves made up pretty well and result in a fairly round structure requiring very little cleanup. The front of the torpedo has a lifting eye molded solid, and it'll require some careful filling around the joint. I elected to just remove the molded eye and replace it with one fabricated from wire. For an explanation of the technique I used to make the eye bolts, check out this short video. The aft end of the torpedoes needed a little touch-up as well. Out of the box, not all the fins match. Two of them have a straight back, while the alternate ones have been notched out correctly. The kit props are pretty chunky, and it would be one of the first things I would replace. So here's the basic kit. As I'll explain at the end of this video, this is as far as I'm going to go with this build, but I think this should give you a pretty good idea of what to expect with this kit, and if it looks right for you. As far as this review is concerned, let's take a look at how it stacks up in our 4-cigar matrix. Because of the ill-conceived parts breakdown, poor gate placement, and ejector pin issues, I give it a close but no cigar. With all the sink marks, distortions, broken parts, and seemingly absent quality control, don't even think about a cigar. General fit earns a close but no cigar. But when all's said and done, it scales out pretty well and certainly looks the part. I give it a cigar. So in the overall, this kit earned a close but no cigar. In comparison to the best current levels of engineering, design, molding, and fit, this kit doesn't meet the 4-cigar criteria. As always, keep in mind that the current cigar criteria varies over time as the current industry standard continues to improve. Finally, not all kits win a cigar, but for whatever reason you just want to build it anyway, which makes them no less desirable, and for me this is one of those kits. However, when I rate a kit, I have to consider an audience with a very wide range of modeling skills, motivation, and resources. So while this kit had issues, once I figured out what's going on and what I want to do, most of the fixes are pretty straightforward. That's why I ordered several more kits to build, when I could just focus on the model, rather than constantly collecting images and trying to get it done in an extended weekend for this review. And yes, they all had the same molding issues, so that's 6 for 6. I've sent a service request to Revell several weeks ago, but I've yet to receive a response. I hope this review's been helpful and given you a few tips on what to look out for, as well as some ideas for fixing them. So long for now, and I'll see you next time.